Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Sean Slater.
And I'm his sister Caroline.
Thank you for joining us for minute 21, which opens with Miles' spider sense going off and ends a minute later with Miles riding a support beam.
I'm quite proud of what I titled this minute. It might not be my best, but I'm still happy about it. I titled it, Suddenly, Spider-Man!
Yeah, it does. It be like that.
Well, do you remember the ASDF cartoons?
Oh, yeah.
And there was the one that it was always like, suddenly pineapples, and then the pineapples would disappear.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt like it happened with Spider-Man in this one. So suddenly, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
And there's Spider-Man.
Yeah. Before we get to him, though.
Yeah, before we get there.
I really like the way they do the spider sense in this.
Oh, I love how they do this.
It's a really neat way of showing, like, as he's walking past the signs, like, he's picking up, like, oh, there's the spider, there's the radioactive sign, there's the Alchemax sign. And it's just like important things are sort of like popping out, and at first it's very like, oh, everything's going on, like you can tell he's getting like overwhelmed by all of this new information, and he's starting
voices in his head whispering to him. One I actually got really clear, not exactly sure why it said this, but it's Miles's voice, and it whispers to him, slow down.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, it's the spider sense telling him to, like, well, like, don't go rushing into there. You got to slow down, take a breath, get your bearings.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's the, he says, slow down. What am I doing? What am I doing? So it's him just like, figure out what figure out what's going on, why you're doing it, and continue from there.
Yeah. Then he enters this factory room.
It looks like a sort of control center. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of like it looks like cabling that would get unwound, or like electrical stuff maybe.
I think I noticed a switch or two, like one of those giant switches.
Yeah.
In there as well. Clearly abandoned. At least it looks abandoned to me.
And I like how the kind of back to the spider sense real quick, the way it's like overwhelming him reminds me a lot of when like Superman and Supergirl, like when they first show like them getting their super hearing and like are just suddenly overwhelmed with like the noises of the city. It reminded me a lot of that, of just them like trying to block everything out and failing.
I really like the way that they do it, because it does show like that first time. I mean, that has to get used to it, because if that's what his brain is going through every time his spider sense goes off, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's something, I feel like it's one of those things where you just have to learn to know what to pay attention to. And so like it still might kind of always be doing this, but he's able to ignore it a lot better and know what the important information is, and what he can kind of safely ignore or just let like instinct take over for.
Yeah. But going like when he entered this room, like this, I think this room is a great example of it, because the voices get louder. They start becoming many more voices. We start hearing lines that haven't been said yet. Like they don't happen until later. And then one I noticed at 22 seconds is that it's a little buried, but you can hear Miles's voice saying, "Miles, look out." And then we'll go back into the more voices, but I just want to point out, then when the squiggles appear above his head, it goes like deathly
his
quiet,
spider sense
and
squiggles.
you just hear his spider sense squiggles. But it gets deathly quiet, and then you just, in big letters behind him, it just goes, "Look out."
Yeah, and
which is really cool.
When that text showed up, like, it's really cool because like all the sounds suddenly drop. It becomes deathly quiet, and then there's the big crash as the subway train comes crashing through the cargo. Sorry, it's not a subway train. It's a cargo container.
Yeah.
Or one of the two comes crashing through. And
Miles is thrown by that and is okay.
yeah, and when I first watched the movie, I thought it did whisper like "look out" after it appeared, but like it goes quiet, pops up on the screen, and then like "look out" happens, and then he gets crashed. But like watching it back, it happens a bit before when like all of the noises are going off, and then it's just "look out" and crash.
Actually, when the words "look out" appear very faintly, very quietly,
but
you hear it said as well, and it's said earlier.
But it's not. I was picturing it after, or I was remembering it after.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It does kind of seem like that. Going back before we continue after the crash, one of the other lines that we both noticed is that there are different voices that say "you're like me."
Yeah, you can hear Peter, both Peter say it, and Gwen says it as well.
Yeah, and I really like that because we haven't heard anybody say it yet, but like we're gonna hear Peter say it in like a future minute.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
in like 2 or 3 minutes, and then Gwen says it.
Quite a bit later.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if she says it alone. I think she says it.
It's when they're meeting the other spider people.
That whole sequence is just awesome. With the Spidey sense.
Yeah, and in the animators' commentary, they were saying how the like "look out," that went through a couple different phases of trying to figure out what words should appear there, and then they finally "look out" was settled on.
I think that was a really good one because it's simple, and yet such a catch-all of like what someone would say. It's like, oh, something's about to crash through that wall. Look out!
It's like a normal, a quote unquote normal person phrase.
Would be a non-normal person phrase.
I don't know.
Beware!
Like alert, like it's something that you would say.
Oh yeah.
It's like the spider sense is sort of talking to him / he's talking to himself through the spider sense.
Shall we get on to Spider-Man, who finally appears in Miles' story? Like actually.
Yeah.
First off, his opening line cracked me up, where it was like, "Norman, I can't allow you to open a black hole under under the city. Brooklyn's not zoned for that."
Yeah, that was one of
classic
one of my
Spider-Man
favorite
wit. That's a classic Spider-Man wit right there, and I'm just like, he just doesn't hold back on that, does he? The other thing I noticed is apparently Spider-Man is okay with a black hole sucking up Staten Island.
I mean, it is Staten Island after all.
Staten Island, sucked up by a black hole? We'll get through. Brooklyn? Okay, you stepped too far. The lines in this are great.
Yeah, they have the quippy Spider-Man down really well.
But then we also get some flashbacks that we've mentioned in previous minutes of him talking about a portal to another dimension.
Yeah.
In that opening line as well, which I'm like, oh, sweet. They talk about that right away. Like, it's almost like glossed over.
Earlier, yeah, it's just another like, hey, remember that portal thing that we've been talking about, and the earthquakes and the all this stuff?
And even
like,
even here, it's still kind of like glossed over.
Yeah, but it's more of just like, hey, they keep poking you with like, remember this might be important.
Hey, this is a thing. Here it feels less glossed over because it's like, hey, it's about to like show up now. Like now it's Spider-Man saying it. I do want to talk a little bit about Green Goblin.
Yeah.
He's huge in this. Oh my gosh.
In the script, they say he's 25 feet tall.
I don't think, as many times as I've seen this movie, I don't think I'll ever get over how big Green Goblin is in this movie.
Yeah, I feel like it seems like later in a little bit when f- um, when they're fighting down in the Kaleida room, and then later at the end of the movie, I feel like his size, like he almost shrunk down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem either the way this is shot, and like Peter's always a bit farther away from Green Goblin, like further back, so he looks smaller. But it
Yeah.
just seems like he's much smaller later on in the upcoming appearances of him.
It could be a uh sort of Beauty and the Beast sort of sense, where in the original animated movie, the Beast is never one consistent size. Which I don't think people fully realize, but when they animated that movie, they constantly play around with how big he is, depending what they needed him to be. In some scenes, he is clearly towering over Belle, and then in others, she's like right at his chin. And it's like he was taller than that earlier.
Yeah.
So it could even just be like one of those cases as well. I also just really, going back to Green Goblin, I love his design as well.
Yeah, it's very like actually goblin-esque, I guess.
You mean
Minus
he
the
didn't?
fact that he's massive, but uh, he looks like an actual goblin instead of a guy dressed up as a goblin.
You mean you don't love the mask that they use in the Tobey Maguire movies?
No, not really.
That mask makes me laugh. It's something else. No, agreed. Here it definitely looks much more mutation, which I appreciate.
I do like so yeah. The one other shot from this minute that I really like is when the beam, the support beam, comes like crashing towards Miles, and we get that really cool like first person shot of it going
Oh
towards him and
yeah.
then getting pulled back out.
Yeah, that's a really cool one.
It can't happen too often because sometimes I get motion sick, but
Yeah.
when things are shot from like a first person perspective of some inanimate object, and like you see what they're actually seeing.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, jeez." Yeah, that I always appreciate that sort of, I don't know, camera work as well. But that's really all I have for this minute.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you all for listening. We will see you again next week. If you want to contact us, you can find us at Twitter on @SpiderVerseMin, MIN, and or on Facebook, Instagram at Spiderverse Minute, or on YouTube at Spiderverse Minute. And if you want to talk to us, you can email us at podcast@spiderverseminute.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.